Well, you just heard from Senator Grassley before the break. He was talking about grilling Google's Eric Schmidt this afternoon to see if the internet giant is, in fact, anti-competitive. Well, joining us now to give us some perspective on antitrust litigation is a partner and antitrust litigator at Proskauer Rose in Washington, Alicia Batts. Also with me this morning is Bloomberg contributing editor and New Yorker senior editor Nick Thompson, who joins us on all things technology. Nick, before we get to you, I want to get to Alicia first, because really the question is, are the regulators, Alicia, going to be looking very closely to what happens at today's hearing to see whether or not they're going to move ahead with more, I guess, investigations or analysis of what Google's position is?
Well, I think the regulators are going to be acutely interested in watching what the testimony is today, but I don't think that anything that's said today will impact the government's investigation. Regulators really do their own research. They're going to have a lot of documents from other companies, from Google, and they have processes and procedures. They'll have hearings, they'll speak to witnesses, they'll do investigational hearings, which are depositions, and that's what they're going to base any decision upon, not congressional testimony. It's very difficult for Congress to influence the regulatory process.
Well, and what is Eric Schmidt going to have to do today?
Well, I think Eric Schmidt is going to have to, first of all, not say anything off kilter. He's going to have to be calm. He's going to have to be reserved. He's going to have to say that,
he's going to have to try not to break news.
Try not to break news. But he's got to show that Google is not a monopoly. This will be one argument, and that even if it is, it's not misusing that. But I want to go back to a very important point that Alicia is talking about, and that Senator Grassley talked about, which is, are regulators influenced by Congress? There's a really interesting example here. You wish that regulators aren't regulated by Congress and by people. They just sort of think and they're sort of you can't influence them. But there's a very interesting data point, which is that the chief antitrust regulator during the Bush administration, this guy, Tom Barnett, when he was in office, Google also had antitrust concerns. And people came in and said, of course he's going to be against Google. He used to work for Covington and Burling, which worked for Microsoft. He's going to hate Google. All his old friends work there. And he was very much anti-Google while in office. Now he's out of office, and what's he doing? He's working against Google. In fact, he's testifying against them today. So it's not to speak ill of Tom Barnett. It's to show that the people who are regulators are real people. They're influenced by their friends. They have future jobs coming up. So let's hope the people in the Justice Department and the FTC aren't influenced. Let's hope they're totally principled. But of course they are. So this does matter.
Well, Alicia, what do you say to that?
Well, I think, first of all, the current investigation is being done by the Federal Trade Commission, which, unlike the Department of Justice, is not part of the administration, is an independent agency. Having said that, certainly, antitrust lawyers are influenced by the broader community and the economy, and certainly what the public thinks. However, you really have to justify a government enforcement investigation upon the evidence that is presented in the investigation. Okay. So I think if there's no evidence, it's not possible to pursue a particular enforcement action. They won't win in court.
Well, and let me bring up also the other issue about, is Google facing another Microsoft situation? I mean, do you think that this could turn into that for Google?
It could. I think what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be some other evidence, right? So the allegation against Google is that it's the gateway to content. It now has provided its own content providers, and it tips the scale so that when people search for things, they go to Google Places instead of, say, Yelp. Now, to prove that Google is maliciously using its dominant position in search, there's going to have to be something in the code that people can figure out, which highly unlikely. Google wouldn't put it there. Right. Or there's going to have to be some memo they find, or some whistleblower, or some recording of a phone call. We don't have that. There's no evidence that Google is doing that. Google is probably pretty smart. I mean, first of all, they may well not be doing it. There's no evidence that there is. And even if they were, it's probably not going to be this. It's going to be hard to find it out. So I don't think they're going to face a Microsoft situation.
Okay, and there are a lot of differences as well. I mean, the Google product is free.
Right, the Google product is free, and in fact, it guides you to its competitors. Every time you do a search, it says, hey, try this search on Bing. Now, it does that just for the reasons we're talking about, but it does do that.
Okay. Nick, thank you so much. Great to see you, and also, of course, Alicia Batts in Washington.